Hi, my name is JW, and this is my path to OSCP. It continues. Yeah, it does. This time, my entries are going to be a little bit different. Usually, they are like I talk about something and I write about the same thing, and they combine into some sort of hybrid of where this is also a vlog and a regular blog, where some things I talk about I don't write about, but some things I write about I don't talk about. So if you haven't been looking at the blogs, there might be some interesting links you have missed if you've only been looking at the videos. But this time it's going to be especially separate, because basically I was responding to one of many very supportive messages that I've been receiving, and basically it was sort of a open letter type of writing that I wrote to this guy, expressing my gratitude for reaching out and how my current state of mind is. It turned out to be quite a nice, simple expression of thought, so I almost verbatim took it and posted to be the blog post text today. So check it out. It's not going to contain the normal amount of links. It's a bit different. Let me know what you think. So more for this vlog. So basically, I had my exam from Friday noon until Saturday noon. And as you may know from the previous entry, I did not pass. I would not say that it was complete failure, because I did learn stuff. And I did get one machine, yay. But the main thing I learned was what I'm lacking in. And as I mentioned in the blog post, the main thing I'm lacking in is standard operating procedures, tools, tactics, and procedures. A good solid foundation of how you operate. And not just some bunch of ad hoc, my gut tells me this might be good, I don't know why, let's try it. Nothing like that. I mean, those are good for certain situations when you're trying to be imaginative, you're trying to be inventive, trying to figure out a new type of problem. That's okay, ad hoc and gut feelings and so forth. But for stuff like recon, stuff like enumeration, like basic things can be easily mapped out to some sort of standard operating procedures. Of course, your standard operating procedures might differ from mine in some way, but I would bet that there's more in common than different, depending on your background, depending on what sort of machines you've already gotten in the real world or in the labs. So it changes your game a bit. But the first nmaps you run against a target probably should be identical across any given scenario. Because you shouldn't, if you don't have any beforehand, so that's, yeah. If you don't have any information beforehand, then you need to not assume anything and just do your standard operating procedures. That should yield you results, and you should then start enumerating based on your operating procedures. Like, for example, one of the things that I did define for my game plan for the exam was that number one priority would be any services open on non-standard ports. So when I got the fixed number of machines for my exam, my first task obviously would be to check that I can see them and they're alive and so forth, that there's no problems there. But my first step was to actually just do a full Nmap scan of all 6,500 ports. Yeah, no, 65,000. Sorry. So all of those normal IPv4, normal ports, and if anything shows up as unknown in Nmap, basically because it doesn't have a service mapped for that, that was my red flag, like, check this first. Then I decided on arbitrary reasons that maybe Telnet, FTP would be the second ones, and then I decided that would be Samba, NetBioSports, and then would be HTTP, because I felt that HTTP usually just ends up being more resource consuming, as in for non-standard ports and some of those other ports, you are usually able to find either quick wins or you move on. So if you find, let's say, port 666 or 100 or something like that, or 10,000, that's usually indication of something non-standard that might be easily missed with Nmap scans and people relying on security through obscurity, which is a real thing, and I've seen it in practice. Hell, I've even done it in practice, because in reality, if you put your SSH on port 222 or 22,000 or whatever, or even a number that doesn't contain number 2, it will drastically reduce your noise. Like if you have a public facing server and you need to have SSH enabled, world enabled, or world accessible, then I would recommend putting it somewhere besides 22, unless you have some sort of limitation on it. It's obscurity. Anyone wanting to attack you, they can and will find it. But anyone scanning the internet for port 22 to probe for some old Debian hacks or whatever is not going to find it easily, and you will just basically save yourself a lot of noise by moving to another port. But some people also think that security through obscurity actually is security, as in they don't need to secure stuff because it's not visible. And that's sort of the angle I've been seeing in the labs sometimes. So that's why I want to attack those first. But that's sort of the things that that I'm thinking that I should have somehow written down. As someone was talking with me on IRC, you sort of like need a fuzzy state machine, like sort of guided intuition things, like does this condition apply approximately? Then you might need to look into this sort of things, and that sort of mentality. Not rigorous. Check port 21. Please initiate scan X. Not like that. A little bit more on the exam. Obviously, a few of you have asked me, because it was quite clear in my previous message that I did not pass. I'm assuming that this exam was made by Gandalf and he did not let me pass. Looking back in sort of, again, hindsight 2020, and shoulda, coulda, woulda, I coulda had 65 points. I want to say easily, if it didn't feel so cheeky to say easily, given that I didn't get 65 points. I only got 20 points. I got one route. I have reason to believe, with details that I can't go into, since that could be inferred knowledge about what the machines were or what they did. But I can tell you that I have reason to believe, solid reasons, that I was very close, extremely close to getting my second machine, but time ran out. The reason why time ran out on this machine was that there were not one, but two failures for this machine. Again, lack of standard operating procedures. Firstly, I failed recon in a manner that I cannot explain, but I can just say that I failed recon. Basic stuff. I should have done it, didn't do it properly, missed something, and I found it over 12 hours later of me starting to actually go at this machine. I found it at 7 a.m. the following morning when I had 5 hours left. Around the same time as I found this missing recon, I also noticed that, hey, by the way, I have had one username password credential on my screen visible for the past 12 hours. Several of which I was trying to attack this machine. Didn't use those credentials, no, because I didn't see them. I couldn't see the forest from the trees. I had so much information. I was going back and forth between machines, mainly because this third machine sort of got under my skin. It felt like it should have fallen in 30 to 60 minutes of me starting on it. Again, can't say too much, but it felt like I should have had it really easily targeted, honed in, and down. Here I failed. I obviously I can't now verify my assumptions, but I have a very strong case for suspecting what I did wrong, and it was basically because I rushed things. I tried to run before I was walking, and that cost me another set of points. If I had done this correctly in an organized manner, I really do believe I could have had 65 points. 65 is 5 short of the 70 passing limit, and I feel that my lab report is solid enough that it could help me get across that gap. But to be honest, I'm not even bummed. Would I have liked to pass? Yeah, obviously. I mean, I'm not here to fail. But my logical self tells me that it's obvious that since I didn't pass, since I struggled so mightily in such standard things, that I'm not ready for that. I wasn't ready to be OSCP. And I have no trouble admitting that. It means I will need to go back to the labs. I am sort of glad of that, because, as I've mentioned, I would have liked to have the 60 days from the get-go, but I sort of feel that this 30 and 30 will probably yield better results than a continuous 60 for me personally. because basically this exam made me stop and acknowledge the failures I was doing, reassess what were my weak points, and now I can go back into the labs, get ready before I resume the labs, get ready mentally, and basically write these procedures for myself, whether they are in some mind map or some Excel sheet or just a drawing on a board. I don't care. I don't know yet. But I can prepare these for myself. I can write some bash scripts because those don't require lab access. And I can potentially even write some Python scripts to add some little more logic, like do nmap and then parse the greppable format for specific ports and do more nmapping, or write some sort of output that check these ports first or something like that, so that the more logical and organized me is doing this deduction or deducing now instead of under pressure when I'm actually attacking some machine, whether it's in the labs or in an exam. So I need to develop my own tools, tactics, and procedures. Because, as I mentioned in the blog, that's not something that they go very deeply into in the lab materials. They teach you the tools, they teach you the basic ideas of doing this, but then leave you to your own devices. For some people, that's exactly the right thing. And for others, I don't know. Because basically you could spend 90 days in the labs going at a leisurely pace and doing things the wrong way and not even know. I mean, as long as you get all machines, you get a full lab report, you have all of your screenshots, and you could be doing things basically ass backwards. You could be going up a tree ass backwards, as they say in Finnish. And you wouldn't even notice it until you actually take the exam. So I'm glad that I took the exam right now, as it exposed my weaknesses in my work habits, and I can fix those weaknesses now. Things I want to relate to anyone watching this, potentially taking the course or considering taking the course. Pro tip: leave time between your labs ending and the exam to hone your game plan and your scripts. Basically, for me, labs ended last Tuesday. I spent Tuesday evening, Wednesday evening getting through my lab report. Obviously, that helped in refreshing what sort of exploits I had been using, but it still was. It wasn't the stuff that I was going to actively use in the exam. I mean, exploits, yeah, but the actual lab writing, no, not so much. So basically, especially now that I didn't pass, that was time wasted. I could have used Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for lab prep. For exam prep instead of doing the lab report. Obviously, that would have required more time after the exam for the reporting, but if I don't pass, then it doesn't matter, as I didn't. And I, of course, with the caveat that you don't need to leave time unless, of course, you are already 100% done a few days before your labs end even. This is something that I would have or should have used. If you face a problem, like an inexplicable problem, something that you potentially normally ask someone on IRC forums or even the admins for help. Obviously, you can't do that in the exam. Like, if you have technical troubles, sure, you can ask admins, but basically, like, how to attack this machine, no, you're on your own. So, if you face a problem, first, out loud, explain the situation to yourself as if you were a novice Sorry. As if you were a novice explaining your problem to a senior or a sensei or whatever. And then think about what you just heard and try to put yourself in the steps or in the shoes of that sensei or senior person and give your suggestions to your junior, to your mentee. In other words, everything is suspect. If you have trouble with an exploit or some nmap or whatever, suspect that the junior guy can't use the proper switches, that they're not using the proper scripts, that they're not passing the correct arguments or whatever. Explain all of the potential things that they could be doing wrong, and then recheck against what you're actually doing. This sort of think about it as if you're explaining to someone else doing the mistake. Can help you get out of your own head and see the problem for what it is. Yeah, I think that's it. This was a little bit long, but yeah, not sure if this was clear, but definitely I'm going back to the labs. The date is still uncertain. I'm in less than 2 weeks. I'm going to be headed for vacation for 3 weeks, so I'm back early May. I might start in early May, but I have a short trip to Finland because I don't currently live in my native country. I have a short trip to Finland to visit family in mid-June, so I don't think that I want to take the exam before that, because otherwise that will be just another month of crunching. I would rather get comfortable. So I might start my labs in May, but the exam definitely will be earliest mid-July. More probable that it will be in August. So I will have enough time, enough relaxed pace attacking these machines. Because if I find faults in my procedures, I need to have the mental assurance that I have the time to stop and fix the problems. Because I think I mentioned this before, but I noticed on multiple different machines during my labs that I'm again trying to find what's the correct switches for user add or whatever, and like, oh my god, where is my scripts, where are my copy pastes? All of that thing should be automated. All of that things should be ready, handily available, so that it doesn't take mental effort for me. I know exactly. I click here, I click there, boom. I have myself a predefined account that I use on every single machine, or if I need to do port forwarding, it will be somehow derived from the IP address, the last octet of the IP address or something like that. So it's always standard and regular, so that it doesn't require mental effort. I want to get to that place. But during my 30-day labs, I felt that I was in such a hurry that I didn't have time to do it properly. I needed to attack that machine first and then worry about potentially post-exploitation scripts later. And that later never came. Thankfully, that didn't bite me in the ass during the exam because I didn't get to post on more than one machine, but the lack of procedures and standards did. I think I'm repeating myself already way too much. As a final note, which is actually the first note in the blog post, I cannot stress how bloody thankful I am to each single person who sent me a good luck or an I'm sorry, or you'll crush it next time. I'm amazed by the support. I'm really amazed by the positivity. I'm truly thankful for that, and I will hope to continue grabbing your interest with this series, especially since there's going to be an inevitable 3-week gap when I'm in the States, because I probably won't have good internet access, and I probably want to be focusing on other things besides OSCP. I want to take a breather, come back refreshed, and especially come back hungry. I want to take down this bloody lab. You won't, OSCP, you won't make a fool of me. I will get you. I bet you. This is the path to OSCP. This is not the quick trip. This is not the Uber ride to OSCP. This is my hard walking journey to OSCP. Thank you for tuning in and walking with me. See you.